This video is brought to you by the letter C, which is the first letter in the word cry, which is what I will do if you don't subscribe.
Side Effects succeeds on an effective plot, great acting, and smooth direction. Steven Soderbergh delivers us the first great movie of 2013. At the end of a commercial advertising a new pill, one might laugh at the fact that the commercial spends more time detailing the side effects rather than the pill's positive effects. Side Effects is about that, except it's not all that funny here. The first shot of the movie is of an apartment. The camera slowly pans into it, and we see some blood on the floor. Right afterwards, the movie flashes back to 3 months previous. A woman played by Rooney Mara is having some trouble readjusting to her life, right as her husband, played by Channing Tatum, gets released from prison after 4 years for insider trading. After a particular incident, she winds up seeing a therapist, Jude Law, who prescribes her an experimental drug, and things seemingly take a turn for the better, but of course the pill has its share of side effects. Get it? Waka waka! And it's at that point where Side Effects truly engages you, having you on the edge of your seat wondering where all this is leading up to. The movie manages to work as an effective commentary on the pharmaceutical industry while telling you its own twisty story. Side Effects is a movie that asks you to pay attention and latch on to the story as tightly as possible, since what could be seen as a throwaway line 1 minute becomes a lot more important 30 minutes later. It might be a little difficult to become attached to the story at first due to the very indifferent tone the movie takes in its first act, which honestly isn't a complaint of the movie, but soon afterwards it becomes easier to warm up to the characters, and credit to all 4 leads, including Catherine Zeta-Jones, for turning in such strong performances. If Side Effects has any faults, it's that it goes on a bit longer than it needs to in the third act, and looking back on it, it's kind of hard not to feel that the movie could have trimmed a scene or 3 out. But nitpicks aside, Side Effects is a tense, unsettling thriller from Steven Soderbergh, and I'm definitely recommending it. While stars as Jason Bateman and Melissa McCarthy have shown quite a bit of comedic talent in previous films and television shows, the filmmakers behind Identity Thief leave them out to dry with the script that's not entirely sure if it wants to be a gross-out comedy, an action comedy, or a heartwarming comedy. Regardless, it fails at all 3. Identity Thief opens up with everyman Sandy Bigelow Patterson, played by Jason Bateman, falling for a scam over the phone, and he ends up giving out his social security number, his full name, and birthday to loud and crass identity thief Diana, played by Melissa McCarthy, who has a fondness for punching people in the throat. This is worth mentioning because she does this at least 10 times in the movie. She then proceeds to party it up in Florida by buying countless drinks for bar attendees and spends a ridiculous amount of money on flashy items under Sandy's name. Sandy eventually becomes aware of this and talks to the police, who apparently can't do much for him since Diana is out of their jurisdiction, so he decides to fly from Colorado all the way to Florida to pick her up and get her back to Colorado by car. The circumstances that lead up to those two making that trip by car are hard enough to believe, in addition to the fact that she willingly goes with him. Regardless, Identity Thief aims to be a funny road trip comedy in which one highly irritable and slightly uptight character is stuck with an obliviously obnoxious individual he really doesn't want to be with, in the vein of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and most recently Due Date. And just like in those movies, the trip of course can't go smoothly. Diana, Melissa McCarthy's character, has a bounty hunter played by Robert Patrick and 2 drug runners played by T.I. and Genesis Rodriguez, all 3 hired by people she ripped off, chasing and shooting at her and Sandy. This is where the movie tries to be an action comedy. The gross out comes in when Diana attempts to make Sandy, who refuses to let her out of his sight, uncomfortable by inviting a male suitor to a hotel room they share, and let's just not talk about what transpired after that setup. And the heart kicks in when Jason Bateman eventually comes to sympathize with Diana's situation. These plot points don't blend well, and on top of that, the movie just isn't very funny despite the efforts of its 2 leads. Identity Thief is something to catch on Netflix if you're bored one night and curiosity just happens to get the best of you. And don't confuse that with an actual recommendation to watch it on Netflix.